Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 5010-405-652. This is a plain bearing 5-knuckle full mortise wide throw steel base 4-inch by 5-inch removable pin satin chrome hinge. Let's dissect that part number. That's quite a bit to go over. So 5010 means a number of things. First of all, it means that it is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves there that they're meant to be parallel to each other when they're mortised to the edge of the door and frame. Okay, it means it's a 5-knuckle hinge, that it's plain bearing. There are no ball bearing packets. It means that it is a wide throw hinge. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but it's wider than it is tall. It means that it's a steel-based hinge as well, and we'll get to that more in a moment as well. The next part of the part number is 405. That means that this hinge is 4 inches tall, and it's important to know that the height is first, and 5-inch wide. You wouldn't call this a 5x4 because the height's the first dimension, and that, by calling out the height first, is how we keep out of trouble, so to speak, by knowing that it's 4x5. It's 4x5. It's 4-inch tall and 5-inch wide. Okay. The 652 part of the part number means two things: steel-based, like we had mentioned before, and it's a satin chrome finish on a steel base hinge. Sold as each. Plain bearing hinge. If it was a ball bearing, it would have a BB in the front of the 5010. This would be BB 5010. Like we said, 5-knuckle, full mortise, standard weight, and that means that this hinge leaf on a 4-inch hinge is 130 thousandths. So that would mean that's called standard weight. Some people will refer to it as heavyweight residential or standard weight commercial. Okay. 130 thousandths, so it's just over 1/8 of an inch. Available in several different finishes as well. Available in all of the prime coat, black japanned, zinc coated, your brasses, bronze, chromes, polished satin, oil rubbed bronze as well. Custom finishes. The nickels can be done as well. Okay. So this is a wide throw hinge. Where will you use this? Well, you're going to use it where, quite frankly, you need some additional clearance. A condition that would describe that would be an exterior door that swung out, and you had, let's say, unusually thick casing or brick mold. It would explain an application that you have on an interior door where, when you're standing on the pull side of the door, and if you ever noticed, the door is inset into the frame, ever so slightly usually. And you can tell that if you ran your hand over the face of the door and the frame, you can see that it's inset a little bit, and that's usually very minor, about 3/32 of an inch. But there are doors that have a much greater inset, 1 inch, 2 inch. I've seen them centered in doors that were installed on frames and 18-inch thick walls. So if you had a condition that your door was kicked in a little bit from standard, that would be a reason why you might need a wide throw hinge. Now, this is a 4x5, which means that when open, it's 1 inch wider than a standard 4x4. But when the door is closed, that's really only an additional 1/2 of an inch. But it really gives you a significant amount of additional clearance over whatever the condition might be. There's a formula that you can determine your need, which can be found elsewhere on our website, where you determine how much additional clearance. But keep in mind that this is going to give you, a total of an additional inch sort of application. Okay, 4x5 is pretty common. 3.5x5 is pretty common. But the part that I'm trying to say here is 5-inch is very common. If you had a slightly thicker than standard casing, this would really work in most instances. And if you're thinking about wide throw hinges, you might need an extended lip strike plate as well. Those sometimes go together in that sort of application. People will buy these if they've got a condition, maybe they've got an opening, and there are 4 doors. When the doors are closed, you've got the 2 inner doors and then 2 outer doors. The outer doors are hinged to the jambs. The inner doors are hinged to those outer doors. So they'll want the two inner doors to fold back around, and then the entire other set of doors to fold back around. And while you need to lay that out and go through the formula by which to determine what size you need, that's a principle of wide throw hinges. There is a link below this video to the cut sheet, which shows everything important dimensionally about this item. And specifically, it shows where the locations are for the screw holes and all of the other data. But also what it does is it helps us see what other options are available on these hinges, and that's referred to in the chart on the lower left-hand area. You've got 3 columns: steel hinge, brass or bronze, and stainless. You've got a 5,000 part number, which is the same hinge except that it's just a typical square hinge. You'd have a 5,000-400, which would be just a 4x4 hinge, but you wouldn't call a 4x5 a 5,000. That becomes a 5010, and that 1 in the part number tells us it's wide throw. Go to the next column over. That last 0 turns into a 1, and it changes the base material to brass or bronze. And if you wanted a hinge made of stainless, you'd have to have a 2 at the end. The 8,000 part number is the same as the 5,000, except that it's a 3-knuckle hinge versus a 5-knuckle. Adding the BB to the front of your 5,000 series hinge gives it ball bearings. And then the 8,000 becomes an LB, which is a concealed sort of maintenance-free bearing construction called lube bearing. Okay? And then you can see again how those part numbers change as your base material changes. Why might you want brass or bronze? Because you might need or require, or just simply the job calls for, solid brass hinges. The finish on polished brass on brass base material looks different than polished brass on steel. Majority of the people in the world, it doesn't matter. Some people, cannot justify the additional cost for brass-based material because of that slight difference. There are others that insist on it. That's all there is to it. You can have stainless steel hinges required where you've got a coastal application, lots of salt, lots of weather, things of that nature, a lot of humidity. That would make sense. Then you've got your dimensional properties as it relates to your 4x4, your 4x5, 4x6, 4x7 wide throw variants of that hinge. Okay. Speaking of those screw holes, screws are included in a complementary finish. Typically all wood screws that you'll get in half machine, because you could have a steel frame or even a steel door and a wood frame as well. Really nice quality item by Bommer, available in 3.5 and then the 5-inch and 6-inch widths. To get out to 7-inch, you've got to go to a 4-inch or a 4.5. To get out to 8-inch, you've got to go to a 5-inch tall. Well, you can do a 4.5 by 8, I believe, as well, or a 5-inch by 8. Getting bigger than 8-inch makes the hinges orders of magnitude. I wouldn't say exponentially. Orders of magnitude more expensive. Last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo. And right above it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. Any questions on the Bommer 5010-405-652 wide throw hinge or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to me.